Hey, good morning. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button and turn the bell notification on so you'll be notified every time I make a video. Today, we are going to talk about a very important topic if you are looking to buy or sell your house, and it's all about contingencies. Contingencies are put in the contract, and a lot of people don't even understand what a contingency is. So, when you're looking over a contract to either buy or sell, you need to know exactly what to look for. A contingency is a condition or requirement in a purchase agreement that must be met for the transaction to move forward. If the contingency has not been met, the buyer or seller may have the right to terminate the contract. And if you're the buyer, you would have the right to terminate the contract and get your earnest money back. So that's important to remember. So why does contingencies matter in Georgia? If you're selling your house and somebody's wanting to buy it, why is contingency so important? So, first of all, it protects the buyer and the seller. And Georgia contracts are governed by state specific forms and timelines, which are called GAR forms. Everything that we do as a realtor is put onto a form that is called a GAR form, which has been written by attorneys in the state of Georgia. Contingencies must be in writing in the purchase contract. So a seller cannot tell me a contingency verbally and expect anyone to abide by it. Nothing verbal in the state of Georgia holds up in a court of law. It has to be in writing. It has to have a deadline. And missing that deadline could waive your right to cancel. So even if you're one day off on a contingency and then you decide to back out, you could lose money. They are handled through amendments and notices in compliance with the Georgia Association of Realtor rules. So we can add it to an amendment. Some of the common types of contingencies in the state of Georgia are the financing contingency. This is a huge one if you're getting a loan. So buyer's purchase depends on obtaining a loan by a certain date. And in the state of Georgia, particularly for me, I do my buyer's financing contingency anywhere between 21 and 25 days. That is something the realtor needs to get with a lender about and ask them, how soon can you have this fully approved? How soon can you have the clear to close? And that's the timeline that you need to put the contingency for. The GAR financing contingency exhibit. This has to be added to the contract. There's an FHA loan contingency, a conventional loan contingency, a USDA loan contingency, a VA loan contingency. There is a cash contingency. If you're paying cash, there's a financing contingency form for that as well. And that is where the date of the financing contingency is put on. It outlines the lender type, the interest rate, the limit, the loan amount, and the approval deadline. So everything's going to be on that one form. And make sure that you get all this information from the lender. Don't just guess. Don't just put what you think is on there. Don't put your last client's interest rate because this one may differ. And if you get those numbers wrong, it can make the contract void. The next contingency is the appraisal contingency. So when you get a loan, the bank that you get a loan from will send out an appraiser to make sure that the contract you have on the property is how much the house is actually worth. So if you put a offer for a home for $350, but appraisal comes back and says it's only worth $320, that means the bank is only going to pay $320 for that house. So that's where your appraisal contingency comes in. So the seller can either lower their price to $320 to meet the appraisal contingency, or they can decide to not sell their house, which means you get out of the deal and get your earnest money back because it did not appraise for what you went under contract for. There is a due diligence contingency. And usually I have seen anywhere from 0 days up to 60 days. It depends the circumstance, the situation. Every contract, or not every contract, every deal is different. So this is very unique to Georgia. The buyer can terminate for any reason during the agreed due diligence period. So if you have a due diligence for 10 days In that 10 days, you as a buyer can use those 10 days to look at other houses to make sure this is the right fit for you. You can use those 10 days to pray about it. Most buyers use it to cover the inspection. They send their inspector out, they do their neighborhood research, and this is the time for them to review the HOA documents, anything regarding the home. And if they find anything they don't like in any of that information, they can terminate the contract and get their earnest money back. There is a sale or lease of buyer's property contingency. So this means that buying the house depends upon them selling their previous house. And that would go in the special stipulations of the contract. That this agreement depends upon them selling another house. I would highly advise to not go under contract on one of these unless their house is already under contract, especially the way the market is today. That could tie your house up for months. So if they're already under contract, then it's good to go. Things happen, but at least that is a good sign that their house is sellable. There is a title contingency. The buyer has a right to review the title report and cancel if issues can't be cleared. So what can come up on the title? Multiple owners, a lien against the property, and if any of that stuff can't be cleared, it has no fault of the buyer. So that is the title contingency, which means they can back out if something falls through with the title and receive their earnest money back. There's also a homeowners association review contingency. That's a certain time agreed between the buyer and the seller to be able to review the rules and regulations of that particular HOA to see if it meets the needs. I have seen this a lot. If it's a lot of land in an HOA, they need to be able to get approval from the HOA to build on that lot of land. And sometimes that takes more time than the 10 days due diligence. So what are the risks and benefits of contingencies? The benefits are the buyer's protection. It avoids you being locked into a bad deal. There's nothing worse than to getting into something and figuring out there's absolutely no way out of it. Also, it's seller's assurance. Timelines keep the deal moving. If you have a certain time something has to be done, it keeps things flowing smoothly. So what are the risks? Contingencies sound pretty good to me. It sounds like it protects the buyer and the seller. Everybody feels like they're in a good deal. So what is the risk of a contingency? Too many contingencies on your offer can actually make your offer weak. So if you're in a situation with a really good deal that you found on a house, but you have 5 contingencies on it, and then someone comes behind you and puts a cash offer in on the house, your offer is the weaker offer, even if it's for more money, because any of those contingencies can fall through. The other risk is missing deadlines, means losing protection. So if any of those deadlines are missed, you are no longer protected, unfortunately. So how do you manage the contingencies in Georgia? So this is the reason you find an awesome realtor like myself who keeps very good track with the help of my assistant. Dates. This date, this contingency ends. This date, this contingency ends. And sends out reminders the day prior to remind everyone about the contingency. You need someone that's going to communicate thoroughly to you the GAR forms, what you're signing, why you're signing it, and someone that's all parties of the contract need to stay in good communication. The lender, the inspector, the attorney, the buyer's agent, the seller's agent, everybody needs to stay in constant communication. That's what helps the deal flow smoothly as well concerning these contingencies. Negotiate extensions before the deadline. Don't wait to the day of the deadline to say, oh, I need another 48 hours. I'm sorry. Once it hits the deadline is the deadline. So make sure that you have a realtor who's going to pay very close attention to those dates. Contingencies are a safety net in Georgia real estate contracts. So make sure if you're getting a loan that you have the right contingencies in there to protect you. And a successful closing of the property, it all depends on clear writing, strict deadline management, and good communication. So work very closely with your realtor to make sure that all your contingencies are protected during your deal. Have a great day.